Hey guys, Frosty Knives here, back with another book review. It's a new year, it's a new hat, and I know it's been a while, but you know how I do. I do when I do, and that's when I do. So this year I have decided that this is going to be the year of what I'm calling the year of the classics. And that means that I'm going to finally get around to reading all of the classics, things that I should have read way back in the day that everybody else has probably read that I have not read yet. And so I started with The Haunting of Hill House, and I read that, and I thought it was pretty good. Wasn't what I was expecting. I didn't really want to do a review on it. So then I went and I read another book that was on my list of classics that I've never read, and I do want to do a review on it. So today we are going to be doing a book review of William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, which is quite arguably known as one of the most terror-fucking-frightening movies ever made. And so this is what we're going to be talking about. And what I'm going to be talking about is what I liked about the book, and maybe a little bit about what comparing it to the movie, because William Peter Blatty wrote the book and he also wrote the screenplay for the movie. So there's not a lot of differences between the two. Actually was really, really well done. That is a creepy photo. Let's get the logistics out of the way. So this came out in 1960 something. When the hell was this published? 1971. I don't know why. I thought it was like 69. So this is 1971. Published. Clocks in at 340 pages. And then the movie came out. Well, that makes sense, right? Because this came out in 71. The movie came out in 73. That was the year I was born. Dating myself. So there. So I read this. Now, I have only ever seen The Exorcist 3 times in my life. And the first 2 times left me a quivering mess, okay? I found watching the movie for the first time terrifying. And then I watched the movie for the second time, and I still found it terrifying. And then I watched it again a year ago or so, and I wasn't as terrified. Maybe I'm just used to it by now. So then I said, well, I'm going to read the book, because the book can't be as terrifying as the movie, because the movie is visual, and this is all... I was wrong, because this almost is more terrifying because it is all in your head, even though you know what's going to happen. And so, I mean, we know the story of The Exorcist, right? I mean, it's almost coming up to its 50th anniversary. So, we know the story of The Exorcist. Chris McNeil, her daughter Reagan, Ouija board, Captain Howdy gets possessed, head spins around, vomit. Then you get The Exorcist and really bad shit happens and you bring in Father Merrin, Father Karras, and then big shit happens at the exorcism, and that's that. So we know the story of The Exorcist. What I liked about the book is that it really went into sort of the talking about possession. And in the book, the Catholic Church, they don't believe in it, right? I mean, even they don't believe in Satan, they don't believe in the devil, they don't believe in possession, right? Just like nobody in this book really believes in it. And I like how they took her condition and they just started dissecting it layer upon layer. And they went to the hospital. They started looking for physical reasons, mental reasons, psychiatric reasons. Does she have hysteria? What's going on? And even with Father Karras, the Jesuit priest, he didn't want to believe. He didn't believe in possession. So he started going split personality, talking about psychiatry, talking about mental health, talking about all kinds of stuff. They spent a lot of time dissecting her condition to try to make it something other than possession, right? That's a different take at the time, is that they didn't believe in it. They didn't want to talk about it. All this crazy shit was happening. If you've seen the movie, you know all the crazy shit that was happening. And everybody was like, no, we got to find the reasons for it. The physical reasons, the mental reasons, and all of that lingo and their exploration of it. I found that very fascinating, the way that it was written. It was very, very fascinating. And then even at the end, when they decided to do the exorcism, they only decided to do it as a placebo. If she thought she was possessed, then maybe if they do an exorcism, then that will cure her. Well, holy hell, weren't they wrong? Spoiler alert, she was possessed. Pretty goddamn bad. Don't let your 12-year-olds play with a Ouija board. Who does that? Just don't do it. But I liked how the one person, the mom, was the one who was like, I've tried everything else. Let's do an exorcism. She was a non-believer. She wasn't religious, but she was like, we've done everything else. There's nothing else to do. I think this is the problem. I think we need to do this. And that's when she brought in Father Karras and all that. It was very fascinating to see all of this going on. There was cops who were involved and they were looking at all of this stuff. It was very, very well written. You can tell it was written by someone who really understood the Catholic faith. And really understood what they believed in as far as demonology and possession goes and all of that stuff. But it was really, really well written. And I know he wrote the second one. He wrote Legion, which was The Exorcist 3. And he hasn't written a lot. Like, he has written other books, but his two big books are The Exorcist and Legion. And obviously, when you go down in his history as writing what is considered the scariest fucking movie ever made, you really don't have to do anything else. You're done. You've done your job. You have scared the piss out of generations upon generations of people. So you've done your job is done. Comparing it to the movie, there wasn't much in the book that wasn't in the movie. Some of the things that Reagan did in the book, the contortioning and all of the thing that the demon was making her do physically, was probably very hard to film in 1972, right? So I know when they did the spider walk scene in the movie, they had to use a contortionist to do that. There's a lot. She did a little bit more in the book, a little bit more physicality that was probably just hard to film in general. So they left some of that out. She talked a lot. That's one of the big differences, is that she talked a lot in the book as the demon. She talked a lot to Father Karras and everybody else. There was a lot of dialogue. It wasn't as much dialogue in the movie. There was some, but they had to truncate it a little bit. But she talked a lot, and she lied a lot. She swore a lot, and she had half-truths and half-lies and all that. And what you would expect demons to do. The conversations that, nowadays, possession movies, exorcism movies, they're a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. People have written about people who are possessed and exorcists and all of this stuff ad nauseum for a long time. But 1971, this was pretty novel. This was new. And this was different. I want to know who the fuck this is, really. And if anybody knows about the cover, because that is some creepy ass shit. That is. Fucking Captain Howdy. They explained Captain Howdy, why it's called Captain Howdy in the book. I don't know if they explained it in the movie, but Reagan's father's name was Howard, and so in the beginning she thought that when she was talking to Captain Howdy, she was talking to her dad, who was not there due to a divorce, and that was her way of dealing. But no, it was a demon. It was Pazuzu. Pazuzu was the one she was talking to. But exorcism movies nowadays, I mean, they don't scare people anymore. They're old hat. We've seen it. And all of this stuff. But back then, when this came out in theaters, there were people that were screaming. People were vomiting in the theaters. There was even rumors of people having miscarriages while they were watching it, because they watched this. Just this threw a lot of people for a loop when they saw that shit on the screen. And I've talked to a lot of people, and this isn't sort of another thing that I've talked over to people over the years. I've talked to a lot of people about The Exorcist, and whether or not they've seen it and whether or not they found it scary. And it's almost split. Half the people I talked to said it terrified the shit out of them. And the other half have said they watched it, but they didn't find it terrifying. I found that interesting. And I started digging a little more and asking questions. And I kind of found that for the people who saw the movie, read the book, saw the movie, and were terrified by it, those were generally religious people. People who grew up Catholic or religious or with a very deeply entrenched, background in religion. And they believed in possession and the demon and the devil and God and all that, and they believed that. And then the people who saw it and said, I didn't find it that scary, generally didn't have that background. Maybe they weren't that type of religious people. Maybe they were atheists. Maybe they were people who had other spiritual beliefs. They didn't really buy into the whole Catholic possession thing, and they just found it to be an interesting movie. So I'm curious what you guys think about The Exorcist, the book or the movie. Did you find it terrifying or not? And if you did find it terrifying, why? And if you didn't find it terrifying, why not? Because I have this sort of internal belief that the people who found it to be truly terrifying are the people who were raised in that environment and who believe in that type of situation that people can be possessed. So I thought this book was really good. I gave it a 5 stars on Goodreads, which I don't do very often. I was really engrossed by it. I liked the writing. His writing style was very unique. He used a lot of fragments when he wrote. He used a lot of fragments. And that is how you read it. It was almost like everything was emphasis. And it was a slow build up. The actual exorcism was the last 20 pages of the book. And it was an actual slow build up, and then there was a resolution. And again, if you've seen the movie, not much different in the book. It's pretty much, end to end. It follows it very well. But I found this book to be really well done, really well written, well fleshed out. You felt desperate. You could feel the emotions that Chris McNeil had about her daughter, the desperation, that reaching for straws. What can I do? What is wrong with my kid? How can I fix it? And as it went on, and then everything they tried, it just wasn't the answer. And they kept looking and looking. You could feel just the sink of desperation that everybody was falling into. And I thought it was really well done. And I gave it a 5 star. And I would like to know what you guys think about it. And if you've seen it and read it, and what are your feelings on what is quite arguably a time-loved classic. Not that picture. No one's loving that picture. No one loves that. The fuck that is. They can go right back where they came from, because that's some creepy ass shite. But anyway, so that's my review of The Exorcist. I think it's a good read. I think you should read it. I think it belongs in your collection, especially if you are a horror aficionado. Put it in your collection and read it. I'm sure there'll be a 50th anniversary edition coming out of both the book and the movie at some point. That's going to be 2023, I think. If I'm wrong, they'll correct me. So guys, that's my review of The Exorcist. Let me know what you think of the book or the movie or both. Hit the bell, comment, like, and subscribe. Pass it around. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. And until next time, I will see you at some point.